This step is known as public participation according to RUTO. Remember, I've said according to RUTO. Those who have learned language, those who have learned law, will understand that according is subjective. For example, if you talked to 3 people and told them about the prayer day, a Muslim will think that you are talking of Friday, an Adventist would think you are talking of Sabbath day, and others would think you are talking of Sunday. So it depends on whom you are talking to, his interpretation. So today, we are talking about public participation according to root of government. If there is a section of our Constitution of Kenya that RUTO government hates, it is the so-called public participation. Since it is in the Constitution of Kenya and they cannot remove it except through a tough route, they have decided to alter the meaning of public participation. Allow me to give you 2 scenarios, each with the end results being how the masses will react. On one hand, you allow everybody, and by everybody I say majority of whom have no technical idea, to participate in a mjadala. That is one scenario. The second scenario, you collect only the experts with a master's degree in the relevant field and above. They sit down and decide something that on whatever law you want to pass. Obviously, the second option would be guaranteed of a more informed outcome. The first one deals with egos. People would feel involved and appreciated. And if it fails, rarely do you get the blame. Even if they blame you, they will also share some sort of blame. In the second option, where you use the experts, let us say you use the experts and then it succeeds. Say that you use the experts and it succeeds. What would masses believe? The masses would believe, after all, that is their work. But if you, I mean, if you do it alone, if you do it with experts and it passes, people will just move on as if nothing happened. They'll just say, after all, that is their field. But if you share with everybody, then you'll also share with everybody when it fails. I hope I understand. But in the second method, you succeed, the masses would say it is experts. If you fail, they say, if you would have involved us, you would have succeeded. Before I indulge in the topic further, I want to make a public and open appeal to William Samoei Ruto. You were once heard saying that Mwai Kibaki was the best president Kenya ever had. I can tell you, even right now, the statement is still valid. Can you please look for a very, very good expert to chambua the Kibakism? From where I am, you appear to be following Moi's philosophy. And I do not mean the philosophy of peace, love, and unity, no. Most of Moi's plans were well thought of, and were of good intentions to the nation. What Moi failed to understand was the belief that Wanjiku had no capacity to know what is good for her and the nation. Moi believed that all he needed was a good dream team to think and enforce his dreams. That is what Moi used to believe. Because there's even a time Moi was heard publicly telling people that Wanjiku anakazana kusema sijui nini nini. Kwani Wanjiku anajua hiyo katiba ni nini? So I want to say here and now that yes, almost all, let me say even all of the Moi's plans were good. But where Moi failed was to believe in himself and his group of advisors. He used to believe in himself and his group of advisors, and he even publicly questioned that if we were to give Wanjiku to draft the constitution, would she even know what a constitution is? So this criticism has nothing to do with ethnicity. The fact that Arab Moi and Arab Ruto are both Arabs is neither here nor there. But the philosophy that Ruto is following mirrors very well with the Moi government. Whereby, yes, he has good intention. He has good intention and good plans. But Moi had a morbid fear of an ordinary person participating in constitutional matters. He wanted to give his blueprint to experts. Experts do whatever they do and then bring it. And that is exactly the similarities with the Ruto. I am saying this because you said at one time that certain dreams were initiated when you are the Minister for Agriculture and each government keeps on postponing it. You said you have given yourself a target of not postponing to the next president. That is not what public participation is all about. First of all, do you know why other governments have been postponing these things? I think the best way to start is we have to start by knowing why were they being postponed. It is like eating. It is like eating and breathing. It is like eating and breathing. They all pass through the same pipe in the neck. So you have to, these things are natural, that when talked to someone may not understand. But this is what I'm saying. Since where food passes is where oxygen passes, air passes, you have to calculate it in such a way that at a certain time, you stop breathing and swallow your food. And most of the time, you stop eating and breathe. But if you have to eat throughout, uh, oxygen will not enter your body, carbon dioxide will not come out, and you'll die out of suffocation. This is what the government is. Has Ruto ever sat down and asked himself what the previous governments were planning to do and did not do? Can he complete it, or can he even reduce it? But when he comes up and says, I must complete these things because they started when I was Minister for Agriculture, that is failing. It's like saying that I want to eat a loaf of bread. When you eat a loaf of bread, you swallow in, breathe, swallow in, breathe. But if you decide to swallow the whole bread at a go, itakunyonga. So you have to you have like just like Archbishop, the Anglican Archbishop told you, Olesapi, he said that you should call people around, tell them that when we were campaigning, this is what we were planning, but when we entered the office, we realized that this is what we can do and this is what is. I can tell you that Kenya is a very understand. I laughed when I remember the word Kenya, and there was somebody who says that he's a truthful fellow, but him and truthfulness in one sentence, there must be not in between. Uh, rigid guy and truthfulness, you have to place there a word not in the middle. The saying that rigid man is not truthful. But Kenyans are truthful. You tell them, I want to do this, and I've failed because the target I could not fulfill because of ABCD. They look at it, they will understand, and they will appreciate, even if you do a fraction of. Maybe for, okay, you have been in all the government, but let me say, maybe the former governments did not fulfill what they had promised simply because it is impossible to do that and do other things. But if you have to force it down our throat, that is bad. You have given yourself a target of not postponing to the next president. That is good, but then we have to be realistic. That is not what public participation is all about. Public participation is not for you to stay there and set conditions and then decide that they are going to happen, however good they may sound. In a democracy, it is better to fail with public participation than pass without public participation. That is why that is now brings us to the word benevolent dictatorship. Benevolent dictatorship is a dictatorship where citizens are living in a very comfortable life, physical comfortable, but there is no democracy there. There is dictatorship. According to Madam Samia Suluhu, open democracy is bad. Open democracy is bad. Uh, she's saying that I've heard even Tanzanian parliamentarians saying that Tanzania is far more better off socially and materially than Kenya. My response is that better sleep with a full head and an empty stomach than sleep with a full stomach and empty head. Suluhu thinks that those under her, so long as at the end of the day they go home with a full stomach, then that is what they all want. To me, I would prefer someone sleeps on an empty stomach but a full head than a full stomach and an empty stomach. I mean, can I repeat it? A full head with an empty stomach is better than an empty head and a full stomach. Even though I doubt if Tanzania is better than Kenya today or even the yesteryears. When we were young, when we were very young, we used to remember Julius Kabarage Nyerere, the first president of Tanzania. He used to say, we remember he used to tell people that he used to tell Tanzanians that you do not need to go to London, but if you want to go to London, just cross the border and go to Nairobi. That speaks a lot, isn't it? I feel that that statement was right then, and it is still right now. The development that is in Kenya, or can I say the development in Nairobi, is so high that Dar es Salaam is where Nairobi was when Nyerere was alive. Now back to today's topic. The topic is to differentiate public participation as envisioned in the Constitution of Kenya vis-a-vis with that public participation of William Samoei Arap Ruto. In Ruto's definition, a selected group of wananchi are taken to a certain place, in many cases State House. They include mama mboga, mkokoteni, and boda boda, etc. By saying that they include, I mean, what about bringing 5 genuine mama mbogas, 5 genuine mkokoteni people, and 5 genuine do the people, etc. in the delegation? And then in the delegation, 95% of those present are people already who are those who would always agree with what the president has said. Every government has that, and every political leader has such people. I've even had people attacking me or even inboxing me saying that we used to think that you are a pro-Ruto. Why do you appear to be attacking? No, I don't have, I've never been a pro-Ruto, and I'm not an anti-Ruto. I've never been pro anybody or anti anybody. Mine, I have always been pro what I believe is right and anti what I believe is wrong. So if in many cases you find yourself in one side, then that is how it is. It is I've never been anti you, and I've never been pro you. So what goes on with the 95% of yes people and 5% of genuine mamambogas, what happens is what people can call a public awareness program. Remember, public awareness is as equal and as important as public participation, but they both have different times and different usage. These people attend what basically is public awareness, and then the motion is passed as public participation. When you go to such RUTO meetings, you attend what by definition is called public participation, and then it is assumed, it is then passed off. We have had public participation. In a day, every day, we all take sugar and salt. During breakfast, that is if you are a Kenyan, we mix sugar with tea. During supper, we mix salt with dinner. It means that at the end of the day, you have had 4 things. You have had sugar, you have had salt, you have had breakfast, and you have had supper. But you see, in the first scenario, you took, in the first scenario, you took sugar and mixed with tea. And in the next scenario, you took salt and mixed with supper. Now, supposing you mix salt with tea and you mix sugar with githeri, at the end of the day, you have eaten all what you usually eat, isn't it? But you did not eat in the correct formation. Now, you'll have to take a lot of anti-acid, isn't it? Public participation occurs at the initial stage where, using your own words, you explain what you want the bill to do. You just use your words. And for something to go to, to be written and published and whatever, it has to have legal jargons. So what you do, you use the street language and say, oh, we want this and this and that. That is the layman's draft, is then forwarded through various stages where it is taken to parliament by legal drafters. Now, these legal drafters are the ones who will now put the whole story in a legal perspective. It is then taken to parliament through the legal jargon. Once the parliament passes it with the legal jargons, it is then taken back to the people to be told. Now it will be reversed back to a layman's language and be told what it all entails. That is the difference between the two: public participation and public awareness. A human mind needs to be changed according to its speed. If you have seen the movie Gods Must Be Crazy, you can remember one time when an employee was scrambling eggs. He was scrambling eggs using a fork. His employer saw that and she gave him that machine that he rolls and scrambles the eggs quickly and easily. When she left, he was unable to use that. So he had to take back the fork and start scrambling the way he has always known. So take people through the development through their speed and not your speed. It may take you 3 weeks. It may take you 3 weeks to understand the whole scenario, but it may take uh, the person on the street 4 weeks or 4 months to understand. So reduce your speed to their speed and make them understand. Allow me to address the president, a president that many people, especially my viewers, insist that I have a soft spot for. Your mind, sir, is covered 95% of the time with your election. You publicly state that when elections are near is when you'll start campaigning. But you are campaigning. Or let us put it this way, you are not campaigning. So when the elections are called, you'll campaign, isn't it? Now, kama hii ndio kionjo, kama hii ndio kionjo, then I want to see how you will now campaign when campaign time is. Because what you are doing is more than a campaign. From what I think, the earliest time Ruto will stop campaigning is the day after he leaves Kasarani after his swearing in 2027. That is the earliest day he'll stop campaigning. But who knows? Don't be surprised to see Ruto campaigning up to 2031. Someone said that were Martin Shikuku to become the president of Kenya, and he had people demonstrating, he would go and join them in the street and say, haki yetu, haki yetu. Someone else recently said that the best job for Ruto, the job that Ruto can do very well than all other jobs combined, is that Ruto can be a very good presidential campaign manager. That one he can perform very well. Ruto's activities do provoke some individuals to remember that he was against the 2010 Constitution of Kenya. Some even say, how can the captain of the anti-2010 Constitution be expected to be the one leading the the country or something, or even to be using a constitution that he fought against? This is where everybody gets it wrong. Who said that Ruto was against the 2010 Constitution? Ruto has never been against the 2010 Constitution. 2010 Constitution gave Ruto a chance to test drive his campaign capabilities countrywide. Since 85% of the nation leadership were for the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, he would have disappeared in a crowd. Remember, if he were to campaign for the 2010 Constitution, there were some people who were heavier than him. So he, like me, by the way, I'm very tall. If we stand in a crowd, I'm seen in Nairobi. But if I were to go to Juba, Southern Sudan, I'd be a very short person, isn't it? So it depends where you are standing. If you're standing with the Pygmies, I'm a very tall person. But if you're standing with South Sudanese, I'm a very short person. So Ruto saw that, and this is what I want people to get it. Ruto saw that by him joining the Constitution of Kenya, Constitution of Kenya 2010, he would be among the second or even third tier leadership. There were some more heavier weights than him. So he decided to go against the constitution, to be in such a situation that he would be the overall. Remember, I've just said that 85% of national leadership had already gone to the yes team. So he went to the no team so as to be the leader of the team. Remember, that team may win with 85%, isn't it? And my team may lose with 15%. I can go there with a bragging right and say I have 15%, but 85% and you are 11 people. It means everybody had 7%. So I want to tell you that Ruto going to the 2010 constitution was not because of his conviction, but it was because of two reasons. One, he is permanently in a campaign mood. So that one would have given an opportunity to campaign. And two, which is equally important, is that he was overall there, and he was also using that as a warm-up for how to carry out a nationwide campaign. How else can you explain how Mtu wa Vitendawili, as Ruto used to call him, is now the person who joined Ruto to form a jumuishi government? As I said before, I think I was even the first one. Most of people have started talking about it after the GNC. I used to say that Raila has always been a deal maker, and Ruto has always loved the election atmosphere. If you can remember very well, because I talked of how Raila had his own deals while he was in committee. But I'm sure you know about the Nigerian number. Yes, after he had been seen and after he had been compromised, then there was hello, sikusiki, sikia, wacha nitakupigia baadaye. Kata simu nitakupigia baadaye. After he had been seen. And the NASA people are waiting for the Nigerian number. So that is why I say Raila has always been a deal maker and Ruto has always been an election atmosphere. I have already aired my concern as to how Itumbi isn't defending bloggers. Itumbi went through a hard time during Uhuru's time, and bloggers today are going through an equally hard time. But Itumbi is not noticing that. What Itumbi is noticing is this, what do you call this type of houses? Affordable houses. That is what he's blogging nowadays. To him, if you ask him about bloggers being harassed, the way he was harassed, by the way, I recorded about it. Is it yesterday or the day before? Uh, Today, if you are to talk to, first of all, he's not even aware. And if you are to ask him, he would tell you that the last time bloggers were harassed was during Uhuru Muigai's Kenyatta. Let me tell you, injustice is injustice. It does not have to be injustice when the other side of the government is ruling. And it becomes justice when, if ni madharau kujibu president, yule akiwa president. Oh, okay, let me rephrase it. If ni madharau kujibu president because president ni wangu, then it is also madharau kujibu president if yule mwingine ni president. It cannot be that way and that way. And what bloggers are going through today is what Itumbi went through. But anyway, we remember what Michuki once said. There is a time people visited Michuki in his office and they reminded him about the last government, how it was, and how Michuki would speak on this and that. And he laughed. He said, no, those were just propaganda to remove that government. It is unfair. Injustice has, if it is wrong during this government's time, it would also be wrong when my government is there or my person's government is there. That is what I can say. So I expect Itumbi to be defending these bloggers. His loyalty should not be to Ruto, but loyalty first and foremost be to his fellow bloggers. Him being close to Ruto, he's the one who is supposed now to use private sessions with Ruto to tell him how to respect bloggers. The issue of confiscation of all electronics of anyone who doesn't agree with you is devilish. Yes, you have heard me saying devilish. If you look at my recordings, like this one is just raw. It is raw because it is meant to pass the message. But if you look at my blogging, where I've recorded a Bible in Lingala, it is done with a lot of technical. I speak in Lingala, then there is the English subtitles which appear and so on. So you find that in many cases where bloggers are uploading their things, they go to studios that are owned by their fellow young people and do the editing from there. There is nowhere, there is no place where it is guaranteed that when there is even some uploading. If you make arrangements, things can be uploaded when you are even sick or you are in. You just go to the studio, you tell the studio people, I have 7 videos, but if you upload them all together, it would be better. I want to be uploading it after 8 hours, 8 hours. So it reaches 8 hours here. And you have done that thing from a studio. From a studio. Now, I don't know where this devilish thing has come up with the RUTO government. That the security apparatus, what do they do? The first thing they do is once they have established that you are the one, just take the case of Jerry. Uh, After arresting her, the first thing they rush for are her electronic items. Suppose this is a student in the university. What are you going to you are going to confiscate his things for months. And yes, university papers there. Come on, Ruto. You have a PhD. Moi had a Kenya junior certificate. Moi was a standard 8. Don't make people think that Moi encouraged academics more than you, a PhD holder. So this thing about anything happening and the security personnel rush to confiscate all electronic items of that, it is not even to investigate or anything. Let me tell you, ask anybody whose items have been taken to the so-called DCI lab. I want to say this. Okay, suppose the rate of them getting the electronics from bloggers is putting there a backlog. Why don't you employ more experts to go through that? Why should something be taken to DCI headquarters and be opened after 6 weeks? Get more machine, get more personnel, so that it goes there, within 6 days it is back. But that is not even the intention. The intention is to cripple bloggers. Let me tell you, and let nobody cheat you that Ruto has forgiven the bloggers of last year. Na ni jamaa ameokoka, aliokoka akiwa secondary. Hata Moi aliokoka akiwa mtu. And then you tell me atiokoka. Anyway, even the topics of we have forgiven them and whatever, it is done for the public. It is done for the cameras. How else can you explain that Ruto says, talks about forgiveness, Musama, and 18 hours later, Jerry is being arrested and being harassed? That is not the way. So, even though I've said that the government should come up with I've said that the government should come up with more people, more machines in the DCI lab. The government should come up with more personnel there. That is not even the intention. The intention is, I've even talked to senior security officers, both the national government, Ngao people, and people in the security. You just get the feeling, and this thing is not even coincidental. This thing is something that was pre-planned and whatever. You get a genuine concern on those people who are saying. It's like today, if we passed a law and said someone can, we have some countries where people are allowed to vuta misokoto tano kwa siku ya bangi and maybe 2 glasses of changa. You may find that if such a law is passed in Kenya, you'll find the OCS is just annoyed. Unaenda unavuta bangi mbele yake na unakunywa changa glasi mbili. The OCS gets hurt but what can the OCS do? Because the law imemshika, imemkaba. So anachomeka kwa roho. That is how our security personnel are doing, and even the national government administration officer. I get the picture that they really hate this thing. You find them even talking, why can't you look for another job or whatever? And then when they get the slightest excuse, and I've said, you can record, you can upload. It is not a must that the equipment you have is the ones you record. It is not a must that that you yourself you have to upload. I've given an example of myself when you look at the Bible in Lingala. They just recorded my voice in a studio, and I started reading talking the Bible slowly by slowly. There is no even picture of me, and then they went and did it in their own studio with their own style. That is why you hear me saying verse 6, then I talk verse 7. So they coached me to have maybe a certain time for them to type and place that thing there. So that is how things are happening. But when you go there and confiscate everything and then go and dump them somewhere with the intention of making bloggers feel that blogging is a very expensive and punishing endeavor. That is devilish, and you are no better than devil worshippers. So I go back to where I started, and this is to appeal to Ruto and his government that blogging is a new profession. Please encourage it. And also the issue of public participation. I know you know better than me. I know you have more advisors than all the presidents combined. And I know there are these topics that Ruto advises his advisors on what to advise. And two, Ruto's advisors are people who are idle because they are not given that freedom. They are not given that freedom to professionalize. And you see, that is the strength of everything. The president should lower himself to such an extent that because they are known, you know, it is really bad to contradict the president in public. Just stay there. Just stay there, one on one. Tell the president this can't work. Give that all technical whatever. Let the president tell you that reduce that into writing. You reduce that into writing. The president that takes whatever. All praises and condemnation will go to the president, depending on how the outcome will be. But Mr. President, I'm advising you, tafadhali, let people participate freely with the public participation. Let it be that whoever differs with you over ideas of what is happening, don't take that person to be your enemy. At the end of the day, success and failure are yours. The success and failure are yours. We always talk about very many things. We talk about Thika Superhighway. We talk of free school. Just take, I was there when Kibaki started free education. It had a lot of teething problems, but he involved everybody. That is why nobody has, it had its own failings, but nobody remembers the failings. They always remember the success because he involved people. But when you come up with your issues, like even the university funding and whatever, people, because you are enforcing the idea to you, people will always blame you for the failures should they come. That's all for today.